Well, good morning and welcome to Move Early, Move Often. I am Blake Martin, my co-host in the depths of the city, just kind of staving off uh, COVID at the door with garlic and I don't know, good thoughts. It's Thomas Karakolis. He, we are figuring out how to get him to talk here. It is going to happen, I promise. And he'll be with us soon enough. I am Blake Martin, as I said. It is Functional Friday. And, you know, we spent a lot of time sitting. And so I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about that and just think about how we can be more mindful around that and a little bit how to do healthy sitting practices. Some people have standing desks, a lot of people don't. I was working at this table that my son and I built. I was working at that table for 8 months, and there's some stuff that you can do that will make your working at tables and that sort of thing better. You can't actually. I think I got to move my mat here so you can see my mat better. Here, you need to be able to see my mat. So I've got a mat, I've got a chair, and I've got a desk. If you're at your desk, you can work at your desk. You don't need to be at a desk. We can do this without. And what I want to do today is I want to spend some time talking about how our spine can be neutral in and practicing having a neutral spine in 4 different positions. All right. So we're going to start with standing. And so what I want you to simply do is I want you to stand, and we've got this little bone here. There's a bone here called the navicular bone, and this bone is kind of the place right about at this bone is where our weight should fall. So it's just slightly in front of our ankle, and then our knee will be aligned over top of that, and this bumpy thing on the side of your hip, it's called the greater trochanter. It's a sticky outy part on a big bone called the femur. And then there's some stuff that happens in your spine that it curves and it kind of winds around the center line. But your shoulders, the point of your shoulder here, should be over top of the greater trochanter. And so that means that your shoulders should be slightly back. You could round your shoulders and have them be over the greater trochanter and round your spine, but that's not ideal. You want your shoulders to be drawn back and slightly down. And then our ears are over top of our shoulders. And most of us, when we work, we protrude our head, we protract it forward. And so I want you to just stick your head way forward like this, and then draw it back so that your ears are over top. So come out of that position, come out. And let's find it. Knees over ankles, hips over top of knees, shoulders over top of hips, and then head over top of shoulders. Right? Let's do that again. One more time. Okay, let's do top down this time. Get your head in line first over top of your shoulders. We'll get your shoulders back. Now I got to adjust my head again. So you see, if you go top down, it can take longer. So let's go bottom up again. Let's get this pendulum. This is an inverted pendulum. We're trying to get it right. Okay, so get your ankles right, your knees over top of your ankles, hips over top of your knees. And I'm going to talk about your hips in a second. And shoulders over top of your hips, and draw your ears back over top of your shoulders. Now you'll notice that every time I get my shoulders in line, so I'll just show you, just have a look. So every time I get my shoulders in line, I notice that my head is slightly forward. So that for me is a real thing that I work with. Now I might end up having a little bit of what looks like a double chin, but I have a choice in life whether I want my appearance to be perfect or whether I want my spinal health to be better. And I'm going to opt for spinal health because in the end that's going to be important. Hips. One word about your hips is your hips are frequently, the muscles here, there's 5 muscles that cross at the hip to make your leg do this. And when we sit all day, we shorten those muscles. We shorten them, we shorten them. We also have a big ligament that goes from the ilium bone down to the femur bone, and it allows us to just kind of hang out like this, okay? So it's energy efficient, and you'll see little kids standing like this, and I guess some adults too. But they kind of stand just kind of sticking everything forward. So you don't want this to be pulling you forward, and you don't want it tucked under. We want it to be neutral up and down, and that's a struggle. That will come with stretching, that sort of thing. Okay, so let's come to sitting now. Let's come to sitting. I'm going to bring my chair just slightly forward. I forgot to start my timer. Hopefully I won't go too long here. So now there's some important things. I don't know if you can see this. I better move my chair back just a bit so you can see. When you're seated at your chair, your hips should be higher than your knees, and your feet should be flat on the floor. I'm not going to go into arranging your chair perfectly today, but what I do want to do is talk about how your body is sitting at it. Okay, this isn't a proper work chair. It's actually kind of terrible. A proper work chair would have low back support, but in the absence of low back support, one of the best things you can do is sit tall. And so you sit a little closer to the edge of your chair if you don't have a proper work chair at home. Okay, sit a little closer to the end. In part, this gets this kind of negative angle for your hip to knee. And now what I want you to do is just nice alignment, knee and ankle. Okay, and you'll shift this throughout the day. That's fine. All right. And now what I want you to do is get your shoulders over top of your hips. If your shoulders are behind your hips, then you have to work a lot. Or if your shoulders are in front of your hips, then your head has to work. Your neck has to work. So get your shoulders over top of your hips. Draw them back and down. And pull your chin in so that your ears are over top of your shoulders. Okay? Remember this. We're coming back to it. An alternative, come down here on your mat, is to be in a lunge position. So I'm in a lunge position with one leg up and one leg down. And for me, even at this dining room table, this is not a terrible angle. My elbows are below my wrists. That's not ideal. But the screen is at a pretty good height, and that's a whole other thing. I don't want to talk about that too much. But this is not a bad thing, and this is a good alternative to sitting. But nonetheless, I want to make sure that my spine is neutral and my back is straight. So again, I've got to get my shoulders over top of my hips. Now, if I'm reaching forward like this, I'm rounding my low back. I'm causing some stress and strain. So I'm going to move my whole body in so I'm a little bit closer. What I want here is I want my shoulders to be over top of my hips and my ears over top of my shoulders. Okay? Let's switch knees and go to the opposite side, the opposite lunge. Now just take stock. I want you to think, is your head forward? My head is forward. As soon as I switched knees, my head went forward. And my shoulders also went forward. So again, shoulders over top of your hips, ears over top of your shoulders. Okay? Interesting how each time we have to come back to it. Now, one more stance here that I want you to learn is just a simple kneel. At your desk, you can kneel and you can make supplication to the appropriate office gods if that's important to you. But the thing again here is my hips might come a little bit forward because I can kind of lay into those big ligaments, those iliofemoral ligaments. I can lay into them. But most typically the muscles are restricting me from pushing my hips too far forward. Get my shoulders over top of my hips. And now when I do that again, my head is forward. So what's going on there? All right. So that's what I want you to do. We're going to do switches. We're going to go from standing to sitting to lunge left, lunge right, and kneeling. And I'm going to give you different switches. And every time we come to it, I want you to take a moment and correct your posture. Okay, getting your spine neutral, getting everything right. So let's start with standing. Find neutral posture here. Just take a second and find it. Okay, knees over top of ankles, hips over top of knees, shoulders over hips, and ears over shoulders. Feel the back of your spine, the back of your head, and the crown should be kind of drawing up toward the heavens. All right? Let's come to sitting. When you sit down, shoulder and ears over top of shoulders. Now, I kind of come a little bit forward so I can maintain the slight lumbar curvature. We've got the slight curve in our low back here. And we want to have, you just want to have a slight curve. You don't want to hyperextend. And that's a healthy position. Okay, coming to kneeling. Lunge, sorry. Find shoulders over hips, ears over shoulders. Let's switch knees. Oh, I did better that time. I almost had it right on. My chin lifted just a bit and went a little bit forward. So just find that spot. Let's come to kneeling. Now with my hands on the table there, I'm kind of cheating because it is giving me a cue about where things should be. Okay, my head was a little forward. Right? Okay, let's mix it up. Go back to lunge. Slight adjustment of my head I needed. Let's stand. Find your posture. Let's sit. Oh, my chin came up again. So pause for a second. What I want you to do is be mindful. Think about, as you're moving from posture to posture, think about what your spine is doing even then. Just take a second before you move and say, where am I? Where is my spine in space? What is it doing? And then try to keep a nice neutral spine as you move. So let's come to standing. Be mindful. Well, that was better. Still have to adjust a little bit. My hips are a little bit back and tucked. I'm going to open them up. Shoulders, head, just a little adjustment. Let's come to our lunge. I lost it in between. Let's go to seated. That was better for me. Back to standing. Lost a little bit on the way up. Right lunge. Took a second. Left lunge. Kneeling. Okay, and let's stand again. And just shake out for a second. Find neutral. Get back here so you can see better. Find neutral. And just kind of walk around in a little circle. Just kind of walk around. And shake out. Come back to standing. What happened? Did you have to find it again? Because I did. I had to re-find it. Something happened in my moving around. I lost it in that brief second when I walked in a circle. So shake out and see if you can maintain a good neutral spine when you come back. Just walk in a circle Walk in a little circle. See if you can maintain neutral spine. Your ribs aren't sticking out. Your pelvis isn't overly tucked. And then stop. Stand. I still had to find it a bit. So I did lose it a bit in my movement. All right. Come back to seated. Now, as soon as we move our hands forward to our desk space, so just reach your hands forward, you'll notice that you start rounding here and that it causes adjustments of your head. So one of the most important things you can do is you can be close enough to your workspace so that you don't draw your shoulders forward. And also your screen, my screen is too low here, okay? So if I look forward, I bring my head forward. And this is one of the great curses of our time with respect to our spines, our cervical spine, our neck, is how we have to push our head forward, or how we do push our heads forward to see our screen. So I remind myself at regular intervals to just kind of check what I'm doing with my head and how intently I'm gazing into my screen. There's a couple things you can do. You can increase the size of your text, and you can change the resolution on your screen so that you can see it better. So these are important things, but they are ways to help you be better at maintaining your posture. But the important thing for you is to, even if you can't do it, is to make sure your head is drawn back. And you'll notice, I don't know if you can see this, but I've also, as I came in, I didn't even pay attention to this. My feet are off the ground. All right, so now I'm actually actively flexing my hip flexors. So it's really important to just kind of throughout the day, take little reminders and just kind of see what your body is doing. As you're seated, just shake it out. And now find it. Reach forward with your arms a little bit. And keep your arms reached forward, but try to bring your shoulders back and bring your head in line. You'll notice you need to bend your elbows a little bit. If you keep your elbows, you really have to do this kind of very elaborate kind of set of muscle contractions to have your elbows completely straight and keep good posture. As soon as I bend my elbows, I'm able to maintain better posture. My shoulders can come over top of my hips so that I'm balanced. All right. So today, what we did was we looked at maintaining a neutral spine in different postures. We showed 4 different postures that you can use. I frequently find myself at my desk with a mat under my knees, and I love this position. This is one of my favorite positions to work in. It's great because it opens up my hip flexors here on whatever side is down. I sometimes also just will stand in a kneeling stance and lean into my hip flexors a little bit, but the risk is that I increase the lumbar curve on my low back too much. And so I've got to be cautious and thoughtful about that. In all of this, I'm trying to keep my shoulders over top of my hips and my ears over top of my shoulders so that my spine is neutral. And I want to feel length along the back of my head here. So this is your objective for today. If you can remember throughout the day, there's this dude named Ebbinghaus who looked a lot at how we learn and memory traces and how they're developed in the brain. And one of the important things is you forget stuff and then you come back and you remember it later. So you'll probably forget throughout the day to do this. But as you try to remember this over time, you'll get better and better at it. And but you have to keep coming back to it and remembering. You will forget. That's okay. Just keep trying to remember. You've moved early. Try to remember to move often. And I hope you have a fantastic weekend. Take care.